The Tide of Truth, Part 1. Discovery of Betrayal. The fog rolled thick over Rockport, Maine, on an October evening in 23, cloaking the harbor in a silver shroud. I, Elena Morrow, sat in my cramped apartment above the docks, the scent of salt and diesel seeping through the cracked window, my hands, rough from years of hauling lobster traps, cradled a chipped mug of chamomile tea. I was 38, single, and bone-tired after a 12-hour shift on the Morrow's Pride, our family's lead fishing boat. My phone glowed on the table, tempting me to doom scroll instead of sleep. That's when I saw it, a post from the Rockport Tide, our local paper, shared by half the town. The photo showed my family at the annual Morrow Seafood Gala, held in the town's community hall. My parents, Robert and Diane Morrow, stood beaming under a banner that read, "Celebrating Lila Morrow, a decade of steering." Morrow Seafood. My younger sister, Lila, 29, and radiant in a navy dress, held a glass of champagne, her smile wide enough to charm a storm. The crowd around them, local fishermen, shop owners. Even the mayor clapped like she'd single-handedly saved the harbor. I wasn't in the picture. I hadn't been invited. My thumb froze over the screen, my pulse a dull thud in my ears. For 15 years, I'd poured my life into Morrow Seafood. I'd repaired nets at 3A, negotiated with buyers in Boston, and covered payroll when storms sank our profits. Lila only joined full-time 4 years ago, after her art school dreams in Portland fizzled, yet the banner didn't mention the family. Or me, just her. I scrolled through the comments. Each one a knife. Lila's the heart of Rockport Morrow legacy in safe hands. Not one acknowledged the woman who'd kept the business afloat through bankruptcies and blizzards. I set the phone down and paced the room, my boots scuffing the worn floorboards. Growing up, I'd believed in balance. My parents always said, "This business is for both you girls." I thought my work sleepless nights, blistered hands, $62. $400 of my own savings to save the fleet would earn me a place at the table. But lately, invisibility wasn't just a phase, it was a strategy. Lila's weekly dinners with Mom and Dad, her name on every press release. The way crewmates stopped joking with me at the docks, it all felt orchestrated. I stopped at the mirror, catching my reflection, dark hair pulled back, a faded scar on my cheek from a rogue trapline, eyes that looked older than my years. I dug through a drawer and found a pewter pendant, etched with an M, a gift from my grandmother, Clara, for my 18th birthday. She'd pressed it into my palm and said, "You're the anchor of this family. Elena, don't let them forget it." I clutched it, the metal cold against my skin, and wondered if she'd seen this coming. Had she known I'd be erased? The gala post wasn't the first sign. 3 months ago, I'd noticed my name missing from the company's website, replaced with Lila Morrow, director. When I asked Mom, she laughed it off. "Honey, it's just branding. Lila's got the flair." Dad, gruff as ever, said, "You're too sensitive. Elena, focus on the boats." Sensitive, that word again. A dismissal dressed as concern. I slipped the pendant into my pocket, its weight a small rebellion against the fog of doubt creeping in. I tried to sleep, but the exclusion gnawed at me. Why hadn't they told me about the gala? Why was Lila the heart of a business I'd built? By midnight, I was back on my phone, searching for answers. I found a second post, this one from Lila herself, a selfie with Mom and Dad, captioned, "Grateful to carry the Morrow legacy forward. Here's to new beginnings." New beginnings. The phrase landed like a hook in my gut. I didn't know it then, but that post was the first ripple in a tide that would pull my family's secrets into the open. The morning after the gala post, Rockport's harbor was a symphony of clanging buoys and squawking gulls. But I, Elena Morrow, felt like I was underwater. My apartment's single window framed a gray dawn, the fog still clinging to the docks below. I hadn't slept, my mind replaying Lila's selfie and those words, "new beginnings." The pewter pendant from my grandmother sat on the kitchen counter, its etched M catching the light like a silent accusation. I was about to make coffee when my phone buzzed an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, wary of telemarketers, but curiosity won. The message was crisp, professional. "Elena, this is Patricia Connolly, your parents' estate attorney. I need to discuss the Morrow Trust paperwork. You didn't return your copy. Can we meet my office tomorrow, 10 a.m.? I frowned, setting the phone down. Trust paperwork. I hadn't received anything. Not a letter. Not an email. My gut churned. The same instinct that warned me when a storm was brewing offshore. I pulled on my boots and drove to the Rockport post office, a squat building with peeling blue paint. Tom, the clerk who'd known me since I was a kid sneaking in to buy stamps, checked my mailbox records, his brow furrowed as he tapped the computer. "Elena, your mail was redirected 3 months ago to Lila Morrow's address on Bayview Street. Digital signature. Her name only. Says you moved." I gripped the counter, my knuckles whitening. I never moved. "Tom, I've been at the same apartment for years." He shrugged, apologetic. "System says otherwise. You'll need to file a dispute." My ears rang as I walked back to my truck, the fog thicker now, mirroring the haze in my mind. Lila had rerouted my mail deliberately, quietly, like she was erasing me piece by piece. I thought of her smile in that gala photo, all charm and no remorse. By 10 a.m. The next day, I sat in Patricia Connolly's office, a cozy space above a bakery, with nautical charts on the walls and the faint scent of cinnamon drifting in. Patricia, a wiry woman in her 50s with sharp green eyes, greeted me with a handshake that felt like a warning. "I'm sorry to call out of the blue, Elena, but the trust transition is time-sensitive." She slid a manila folder across the desk, her expression unreadable. "This is your parents' latest trust, signed 6 months ago. It transfers all Morrow assets, the business, the boats, the harbor warehouse, the cottage to Lila." I opened the folder, my hand steady despite the storm inside. The document was pristine. My parents' signatures, Robert's blocky scrawl, Diane's elegant loops, notarized and sealed. Morrow Seafood, valued at $1, $2 million, was Lila's alone. The coastal cottage, where I'd spent summers with my grandmother, was hers too. All of it, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the hum of the heater. Patricia nodded, then leaned forward. "I assumed you'd seen this. The paperwork was sent to your apartment. Certified mail." I shook my head. "Lila redirected my mail. I never got it." Patricia's lips tightened, and she stood, crossing to a small safe in the corner. "There's something else," she said, retrieving a cream envelope sealed with a wax M. "Your grandmother, Clara, left this for you. Dated a year before she passed. Lila was supposed to deliver it." My breath caught. Lila had been 25 then, back from art school, already worming her way into Mom's good graces. I tore the envelope open, careful not to rip the contents. Inside was a notarized trust addendum, naming me 50% co-owner of Morrow Seafood and the cottage, signed by Clara and my parents in 2021. A sticky note in Patricia's handwriting read, "For Elena, copy retained." My vision blurred. Not with tears, but with clarity. This wasn't just a keepsake. It was legal proof I'd been written out. "Why didn't I get this sooner?" I asked. My voice sharper now. Patricia sighed. Sitting back down, Lila picked it up the day I tried to deliver it, said she'd handle it. Of course she did. I thanked Patricia. My words mechanical, and drove home. The envelope on the passenger seat like a ticking bomb. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table, the pendant beside the addendum, when another discovery hit. I'd been flipping through a cookbook Clara left me, recipes from the Maine coast, hoping its familiar pages would calm me. Tucked between a lobster bisque recipe and a faded photo of us at the cottage was a letter. Clara's handwriting unmistakable. "Elena, if you're reading this, you've found the truth they tried to bury. The business is yours by right. Not just blood. Look for the ledger in the cottage attic. It holds your proof. Trust your heart, not their words. Love." Nana. My pulse raced. The cottage, a weathered haven on a cliff overlooking Penobscot Bay, hadn't been touched since Clara's death 3 years ago. I grabbed my keys, the pendant, and a flashlight, and drove through the fog to the cottage, the old key stuck in the lock. But the door creaked open, releasing a wave of cedar and memory. I climbed the narrow attic stairs, my boots echoing in the silence. Among dusty boxes and a cracked lobster trap, I found a leather-bound ledger, its cover embossed with Morrow Seafood. 2008-2021. I opened it, my flashlight beam dancing across the pages. Clara's meticulous notes detailed every dollar I'd invested. $62. $400 for new traps after a 2015 nor'easter. $15,000 for dock repairs in 2018. $10,000 for a tax bill. Dad forgot in 2020. My parents called it family duty, but Clara called it Elena's legacy. Tucked in the back was a single page. Her handwriting, bold, "No Morrow asset transfer shall occur without Elena Morrow's consent until she reaches 40. I was 38. The clause was alive, a lifeline they thought I'd never find. I sat on the attic floor, the ledger in my lap, Clara's pendant heavy in my pocket. Outside, the foghorn wailed, low and mournful. Lila hadn't just excluded me from a gala, she'd tried to erase my birthright, but Clara had seen it coming, and she'd armed me with the truth. I closed the ledger, my resolve hardening like the Maine coast itself. This wasn't over, it was just beginning. The Rockport. Dawn broke cold and clear a week after I found Nana's ledger, the harbor glittering like shattered glass under a November sky. I, Elena Morrow, sat at my kitchen table, the leather-bound ledger open before me, its pages a map of my unseen sacrifices. $400 for traps, $15,000 for docks, countless nights balancing books while Lila partied in Portland. Nana's clause. No asset transfer without my consent until I'm 40 burned in my mind, a legal shield against my family's betrayal. The pewter pendant, etched with an M, hung around my neck, its weight grounding me as I planned my next move. Lila had stolen my mail, my legacy, and my place in Morrow Seafood. But I wasn't invisible anymore. I was building a case. First, I needed allies. I called Sam Wheeler, the Rockport Tide journalist who'd covered the gala. We'd been friends since high school, when he'd sneak me coffee during my dawn shifts at the docks. Now, 37, with a scruffy beard and eyes that saw too much. He was my best shot at digging deeper. We met at the Salty Bean, A cafe overlooking the harbor, its air thick with espresso and fried clams. I slid the ledger across the table. Keeping Nana's letter private for now, Lila's rewritten me out of the business. I said, voice low. She redirected my mail. Took my trust documents. I need to know what else she's hiding. Sam's brow furrowed, but his eyes sparked with that reporter's hunger. This is big. Elena, I can check Lila's financial moves bank records, property filings, but if I find dirt, it might go public. You okay with that? I hesitated. A scandal could sink Morrow Seafood, our cruise, our town's trust. But silence had already cost me everything. Find what you can, I said, my fingers brushing the pendant. Sam's hand grazed mine as he took the ledger. A fleeting warmth I pushed aside. Not now, maybe not ever. Days later, Sam texted, meet me at the docks. Got something. I found him by the Morrow's Pride. His notebook stuffed with printouts. Look at this, he said, handing me a document. It was a medical affidavit, filed with the trust, claiming Dad was mentally incapacitated from medication during the signing 6 months ago. My jaw tightened. I'd been with Dad that week, hauling traps, discussing yields. He was sharp, joking about my knot-tying skills. The affidavit was notarized by Cassie Dyer, Lila's best friend and a nurse who'd always envied my role in the business. This is forged, I said, my voice steel. Sam nodded. Cassie's been cozy with Lila lately. I'm digging into her too. The family's gaslighting hit harder. Mom left voicemails, her voice syrupy. Elena, don't overreact. Lila's just better at the spotlight. You're too sensitive. Dad sent a text. Stop stirring trouble. The business needs Lila's charm. Lila's messages were colder. Drop this, or you'll ruin us all. Each word was a hook, twisting my resolve. But I didn't call back. I drove to the county clerk's office instead, pulling records on the warehouse and cottage, the deeds, transferred to Lila 3 months ago, were clean, no mention of me, no trust. But the notary was Cassie, her signature a smug flourish. The town turned against me. 2, at the docks, old crewmates like Pete, who taught me to splice rope, avoided my gaze, swayed by Lila's free beers and charm. She says you're jealous, Pete muttered once, then shuffled off. The worst came at the market, where Cassie cornered me by the lobster tanks. Her blonde ponytail bounced as she smirked. You're not cut out for this. Elena, Lila's the face of Morrow now. Step aside. I clutched a bag of clams, my nails digging into the plastic. Funny, I said, stepping closer. The face doesn't pull traps or pay bills. I do. I walked away, her laughter trailing me like seaweed. Sam called that night, his voice urgent. Cassie's been depositing checks from Lila, thousands, unmarked, and I found a witness, a clerk who saw Lila forge the mail redirect form. My heart raced. This wasn't just favoritism, it was fraud, coordinated and cruel. I scanned the ledger, affidavit, and deeds into a cloud folder labeled Morrow Truth, my hands shaking not with fear but purpose. Then I emailed Nora Blake, a Camden attorney Patricia recommended, attaching everything. Her reply was swift. Strong case. Meet me tomorrow. We'll freeze the assets. As I locked the folder, my phone buzzed a voicemail from Mom. Elena, please, we thought Lila could handle things quietly. Don't tear us apart. Her tone, soft as a lullaby, was laced with guilt. But I didn't waver. I slipped the pendant under my shirt, its cool metal against my skin, a reminder of Nana's words. Trust your heart, not their words. The tide was turning, and I was ready to ride it. The Rockport Harvest Festival lit up the harbor in mid-November 2023, its string lights weaving a golden web over the docks. Bonfires crackled, and the air smelled of lobster boils, cider, and pine. I, Elena Morrow, stood at the edge of the crowd, my grandmother's pewter pendant warm against my chest, the Morrow Truth folder ledger, forged affidavit, deeds sat heavy in my bag. A silent ally. I hadn't planned to attend the festival, where Lila was set to receive the Community Star Award for her leadership at Morrow Seafood, but Sam Wheeler, the journalist who'd become my confidant, had urged me over coffee that morning. "You're not invisible, Elena," he'd said, his hazel eyes steady. "Show them you're still here." His hand had lingered on mine, a spark I couldn't name. But I nodded. Tonight, I'd face the town. I wore a simple green dress, my dark hair loose. The pendant, my only adornment. The festival buzzed with familiar faces, fishermen I'd trained, shopkeepers I'd bartered with, kids I'd taught to tie knots, yet whispers followed me. "Why's Elena so quiet lately?" Lila's the real Morrow now. Lila had spent weeks charming the town, buying rounds at the pub, promising jobs. My crewmates, once loyal, now ducked my gaze. Swayed by her lies and free lobster rolls, I clutched my bag tighter. Nana's words echoing, "Trust your heart." Not their words. The main stage, draped in red and gold, overlooked the harbor. Lila took the spotlight, radiant in a white sweater and jeans, her blonde curls catching the light. Mom and Dad flanked her, Mom in a coral shawl, Dad in his old flannel. Their smiles rehearsed. Lila's voice rang out, sweet as a siren's. "I'm honored to accept this award for Morrow Seafood. My parents built this legacy, and I'm proud to carry it forward." The crowd roared, cameras flashing. Not one word about me, the woman who'd rebuilt the fleet, paid the loans, weathered the storms. My stomach twisted, but I stayed rooted, waiting. Then Cassie Dyer, Lila's best friend and the nurse who'd notarized the forged affidavit, stumbled forward, a cider cup in hand. Her voice cut through the applause, loud and slurred. "Let's hear it for the real hero, Lila Morrow, not some jealous has-been." The crowd stilled, eyes darting to me. Cassie's smirk was a challenge, her betrayal sharper than the winter wind. She'd been my friend once, braiding my hair at sleepovers, but envy had turned her into Lila's weapon. Murmurs rippled. "Is she talking about Elena? What's going on?" My heart pounded, but I moved before doubt could anchor me. I walked to the stage, my boots steady on the gravel, the ledger in my hand like a shield. The crowd parted, their whispers a tide pulling me forward. Lila's smile froze as I climbed the steps, Mom's hand clutching Dad's arm. "Elena, this isn't the place," Lila hissed, her voice low but venomous. I ignored her, facing the crowd, the harbor lights glinting behind me. "I'm proud of Morrow Seafood," I said, my voice clear, carrying over the waves. "I built it every trap, every loan, every nor'easter. I poured 15 years into this business, my savings, my sweat. If Lila's the hero, ask why my name's off the deeds. Ask why she forged documents to steal what I earned." I held up the ledger, its leather cover catching the stage lights. "This is the truth, my truth. They erased me, but I'm still here." Gasps erupted, phones raised to record. Lila stepped forward, her face pale. "You're delusional, Elena." "This is my moment," Mom chimed in, her voice trembling. "Sweetie, don't make a scene. We thought you didn't want the burden. Dad just stared at the ground, his silence louder than words. Cassie shouted from the crowd. She's lying. Lila's the future. But the murmurs shifted. Elena's right. She's always been there. What's this about forgery? Sam was in the crowd, his camera flashing, his expression a mix of pride and worry. I met his eyes, drawing strength, then turned back to Lila. You can't rewrite history forever, I said softly. Just for her. The tide always brings the truth. I stepped off the stage, the crowd parting again, some clapping, others whispering. Lila's award speech resumed, but it was hollow. Her charm cracked. That night, Lila called, her voice a snarl. You humiliated me in front of everyone. This is war. Elena, you'll regret this. I didn't respond, my phone screen dimming as I sat in my apartment, the pendant warm in my hand. The town was buzzing. Sam texted that his editor wanted the story, and posts were already circulating online. Cassie's outburst had backfired, and Lila's lies were unraveling. I opened the Morrow Truth folder, adding a photo of the ledger from the stage. The festival wasn't the end, it was the spark. War, Lila had started it years ago. I was just fighting back. The Camden Courthouse loomed over Rockport's main street in late November 2023, its gray stone facade as unyielding as the Maine winter creeping in. I, Elena Morrow, stood on the steps, clutching the Morrow Truth folder ledger, forged affidavit, deeds, and a USB with Cassie's damning recording. Nana's pewter pendant hung heavy around my neck, its etched M a talisman against the storm ahead. The Harvest Festival confrontation had split the town. Half saw me as a hero, half as a troublemaker. But today wasn't about public opinion. It was about justice. My attorney, Nora Blake, a Camden native with a razor-sharp mind, had filed a petition to freeze Morrow assets, citing fraud and Nana's clause, no transfers without my consent until I'm 40. I was 38, and the clock was ticking. Inside, the courtroom was stark, with scuffed wooden benches and a faint smell of polish. Lila sat across the aisle, her navy suit crisp but her eyes darting, her confidence frayed since the festival. Mom and Dad were beside her, dressed in muted tones. Mom in a beige cardigan, Dad in a worn jacket, like they were victims of a misunderstanding. Their refusal to meet my gaze stung more than Lila's glares. Sam Wheeler sat in the back, his notebook open, his presence both comfort and risk. He'd texted last night, "Story's ready, but I'll hold it if you say so." I hadn't replied, torn between truth and the chaos a headline could unleash. Nora gave me a nod, her gray eyes steady, and I took my seat beside her. The bailiff called the session to order, and Judge Hargrove, a stern woman with silver hair, entered. Her voice was gravelly. "No nonsense. Ms. Blake, proceed with your opening summary." Nora stood, her posture like a lighthouse in a gale. "Your Honor, we're here to contest fraudulent asset transfers of Morrow Seafood and related properties, orchestrated by Lila Morrow with complicity from Robert and Diane Morrow. We have evidence of forgery, manipulation, and breach of a binding trust clause." She began with the ledger, passing it to the clerk. "This documents Elena Morrow's $400 in personal contributions to Morrow Seafood, unacknowledged by the family. It also contains a clause, written by Clara Morrow, prohibiting asset transfers without Elena's consent until age 40. Lila's lawyer, a slick Boston type, objected hearsay, but Hargrove overruled. The ledgers notarized. Continue. Next, Nora presented the forged medical affidavit, claiming Dad's incapacity during the trust signing. This document, notarized by Cassie Dyer, Lila's associate, is false. Elena was with Robert Morrow that week. He was fully competent. She slid over my signed statement, detailing our conversations about trap yields. Then came the USB. Nora played the recording Cassie's voice, slurred at a bar, caught by Sam. Lila paid me to fake the affidavit, said Elena's too soft to fight. The courtroom hushed, the words hanging like fog, Lila's face drained of color, her hands gripping the table. Judge Hargrove leaned forward, her glasses glinting. This recording verified. Nora nodded. Time-stamped. Authenticated. Obtained legally by a third party. Lila shot to her feet. It's out of context. I didn't. Sit down. Miss Morrow. Hargrove snapped. No outbursts. I didn't look at Lila. I didn't need to. The truth was louder than her protests. Nora handed the clerk Nana's trust addendum, signed in 2021, naming me 50% co-owner. This clause, valid until Elena's 40th birthday next year, grants her veto power over transfers. The recent deeds to Lila are null without her consent. Hargrove flipped through the document, then fixed her gaze on me. Ms. Morrow, when is your 40th birthday? I stood, my voice steady. November 12th, 2024. Your Honor, she nodded. Then, as of now, contested assets cannot be transferred without your approval. Lila turned to our parents, her whisper a hiss. You knew about this clause. Why didn't you check? Mom's face was pale, her hands twisting a tissue. Dad rubbed his forehead, shrinking into his jacket. I pulled the pendant from my neck, holding it up. This was Nana's, I said, addressing the room. She called me the anchor. She knew you'd try to erase me, but she made sure I could fight back. The courtroom stilled, the pendant catching the light like a beacon. Hargrove's gavel cracked, effective immediately. All Morrow asset transfers are frozen. A fraud investigation is ordered, focusing on the affidavit and notary records. Probate will be reopened. Lila slumped, her poise shattered. Mom whispered, Elena. Why? Dad just stared at the floor. I turned to leave, but Sam caught my arm outside. You were incredible, he said, his voice soft. But my editor's pushing to run the story tomorrow. I need your word. I met his eyes. Torn. Give me 24 hours. I said. He nodded, but the weight of his gaze lingered. A question we hadn't answered. As I stepped into the chilly air, Nora's voice echoed in my mind. This isn't revenge, Elena. It's restoration. The harbor sparkled below, and for the first time in months, I felt unburdened. The tide had turned, and I was ready for what came next. The first week of December 2023 brought a quiet snow to Rockport, Maine, dusting the harbor like sugar on a pastry. I, Elena Morrow, stood on the porch of the coastal cottage, now legally mine, the deed bearing my name alone after the courtroom victory. The Morrow Truth Folder Ledger. Affidavit. Nana's addendum sat locked in a fireproof box under my bed. Its secrets no longer a burden, but a badge. Nana's pewter pendant hung around my neck, its etched M catching the morning light as I gazed at the Penobscot Bay, its waves whispering peace. The courtroom had frozen Morrow Seafood's assets, ordered a fraud investigation, and restored my place as co-owner. Lila had fled to Boston, her charm shattered. While Mom and Dad's silence spoke louder than any apology, I wasn't here to gloat. I was here to breathe. The cottage smelled of cedar and memory, its creaky floors unchanged since Nana's summers teaching me to shuck clams. I wandered inside, my boots soft on the rug, and ran my fingers along the bookshelf where Nana kept her tide charts and poetry. The harbor view from the kitchen window sparkled, the same window where she'd hum Amazing Grace while rinsing tomatoes. I stood there, letting the light warm my face, and felt a shift, not closure, but stillness. The business was under my control now. The crew's back to work, the town rallying behind me after Sam's article ran, titled The Anchor of Morrow, Elena's Fight for Truth. It was respectful, factual, and devastating. I'd given Sam the green light the day after court, knowing the truth needed air, even if it stung. A knock at the door broke my thoughts. Mrs. Callahan, the neighbor who'd tended Nana's roses, stood there, holding a weathered envelope. Found this in the cottage's old mailbox, she said, her scarf fluttering in the breeze. It's Clara's writing. I thanked her, my fingers tracing Nana's familiar loops. Back inside, I sat in the armchair, still creaking in the same spot, and opened the letter, dated a week before Nana's death in 2020. Elena, if you're reading this, the tide's turned, as I knew it would. People cling to lies when they fear loss, but you've always been the anchor, the cottage, the business. They're yours, not because you demanded them, but because you earned them. Speak softly, but stand tall. Justice is slow, but it finds its shore. Love always. Nanas. I folded the letter, pressing it to my chest, a quiet exhale escaping me. Not relief, but release. Nana had seen this betrayal coming. Lila's ambition, Mom's favoritism, Dad's apathy, and armed me with tools to fight. The pendant, the ledger, this letter. They were her voice, guiding me through the fog. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from Mom. I hesitated, then played it. Her voice was softer, strained. Elena, we didn't see you. We thought Lila was the future. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you're okay. No tears came, just a long, hollow breath. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't ready to open that door. Some wounds don't need slamming to heal, they just need distance. Lila's last text, sent before she left, lingered in my mind. You won, but you've lost us. Had I, or had I gained myself? I didn't reply. Instead, I walked upstairs to Nana's old study, now my reading room with white curtains and a shelf of her favorite books. Thoreau, Dickinson, Tide almanacs. On the mantel, I placed the pendant beside a faded photo of me and Nana at the docks, my 16-year-old self grinning. A lobster trap at my feet. That girl had folded hope into quiet corners, believing love was earned through sacrifice. She lived here now, proud, whole. I didn't burn bridges, but I wasn't rebuilding them either. Sam stopped by that afternoon, his coat dusted with snow. The article's getting national pickup, he said, leaning against the doorframe. You're a hero. Elena, how's it feel? I smiled, handing him a mug of tea, like I can breathe. His eyes held mine, a question unspoken. We danced around it, coffee dates, late-night talks, his hand on mine at the festival. And us, he asked, voice low. I paused. The tide outside steady, unhurried. Let's see where the current takes us, I said. He nodded, a grin breaking through. And for now, that was enough. Down the harbor, kids laughed, chasing snowflakes. A girl, maybe 10, ran past. A paper boat, bobbing in a puddle. I stepped outside, locking the cottage behind me, and paused. No goodbyes, no declarations, just the snow on my face and a life I'd claimed. They thought I was dispensable, but I'd been the anchor, the tide, the truth. Family wasn't just blood, it was respect, and I'd earned mine, not by shouting, but by standing where the shore met the sea.